بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity to continue with our lessons and in the commentary of Aqeedah Sanusiyyah. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in this lesson and make this lesson any reason where our sins are forgiven and prayers are answered. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all difficulties, trials and tribulations in dunya and akhirah. And bless us in your husnul khatimah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. The topic of our discussion in the commentary of Aqeedah Sanusiyyah, we are still speaking about the proofs for the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the author expanding on the subject of the contingency of the universe. When we can prove the contingency of the universe, then we come into the understanding that there is the originator who brought it into existence and from non-existence, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So and then after that we spoke about the seven foundations on the contingency of the accidents. So let us go back and we take a look at the seven foundations. So last week basically we just go through all this seven quickly, but then the author will explain every of this foundation in greater detail. So these are the seven. Number one is affirming something additional to a substance. And before that, he said you should know that there are seven foundations upon which the rational proof for the world's contingency is built. So number one, affirming something additional to a substance, an accident. Number two, invalidating the view that it is self-subsistent, and it is pertaining to the accident. Number three, invalidating the view that it can displace itself. Number four, invalidating the view of its manifestation or concealment. Number five, establishing that it is impossible for something eternal to cease in its existence. Number six, affirming that substances are inseparable from this addition, the accident. Number seven, establishing the impossibility of contingencies without a first. Hawadis la awwala laha. All this we mentioned in our last lesson, and last lesson I spoke about the first foundation. And this is the greater detail where the author starts to speak about the explanations on the seven foundations. So we will go through again the first one. The first one is revision. Last week we spoke about this. So he said affirming something that is additional to a substance that is an accident. This is to affirm something additional to a substance with which the substance is described, such as movement, stillness. So I gave the example of movement and stillness. So this cup is a substance and this movement is an accident. So the movement of the cup is something that subsists within the substance, and it doesn't stand on its own. It clings on. It is in need of the substance to be at present. So there is no such thing as movement by itself or stillness by itself. It always subsists within substances. So it is something that is additional. It is something that is additional. Do we say the movement of this cup is from the cup or from the substance of the cup? No, it is an additional thing. The cup is a substance by itself. So movement is something that happens to the cup. So it is something that is additional. So he gave this example such as movement, stillness, and likewise pertaining to color. For example, pertaining to the size also is an accident. The length of this cup is an accident. The width of the cup is an accident. The color of the cup is an accident. And these things they doesn't stand on their own. So by now I hope that we have understood what we meant when we say it doesn't stand on its own. So al-a'rad, accidents, they do not stand on their own. This is basically the definition of accident in what you call it in the Islamic perspective. يعني we say ما يقوم على غيره. Al-arad ما يقوم على غيره. يعني it is something that subsists or stand on something else. So the color of this cup, it stands with the cup, and it doesn't stand on its own. Whereas the substance that is the cup, it stands on its own. It is something that takes up space. It is something that what you call it can be moved from one place to another, because it is a substance. It is a substance. So it stands on its own. But pertaining to the color and the size and the movement and stillness, these are accidents. This is self-evident and is no need of proof. And easy for us to understand that the movement of the cup is not part of the cup. Correct? Not the movement of the cup is not any part of the cup. It is something that happens to the cup. The cup is moved. So the movement is not any part of the cup. The cup can be moved, and the cup can remain in stillness. So it is not any part of the cup. So likewise pertaining to the height, it is something that subsists within the cup. It clings to the substance. So this is the meaning when we say it is something that is additional. So it is not the substance. If you say that accidents of substances, then there is a clash of realities. Later on the author will speak about this. But basically a substance is substance, accident is accident. They are not the same. They are not the same, and they cannot be separated. They are not the same, and they cannot be separated. This also will be mentioned later. There is not a single intelligent person except that he senses additional attributes within himself. Your height, for example. We know that our height is what you call it is an accident. It is an accident. Our movement, our stillness, our health, sicknesses. This is not part of the substance of our body, but it is something that happens. It is something that subsists. So it is something that is additional. It is something that is additional. The color of our skin, it is something that is additional. So because why we can understand this, it cannot be separated. It cannot be separated because it doesn't stand on its own. So it is in need of substances to subsist in. Now, so this is point number one. This is the foundation number one. To prove that accidents are something that is additional to substances. Number two, invalidating the view that it is self-subsistent. Accident cannot be self-subsistent. Accident cannot be self-subsistent. So now he is saying invalidating the view that it is self-subsistent. And if a person says that, why not any accident can stand on its own? So now easily we can invalidate this kind of claim. So the author mentioned invalidating the view that it can displace itself. The proof for the invalidity of these two views in the following: if an accident subsists within itself or displaces itself. So there are two things here. He mentioned both. Number one, invalidating the view that it is self and its subsistence. What is the meaning of self-subsistent? Meaning it stands on its own. As well, we mentioned that accidents do not stand on their own. So I hope by now clear, inshallah. I don't think there is any there is any other issue. The second thing he said, invalidating the view that it can displace itself. Meaning it can be separated from the substance. So the question we ask, can accidents be separated from substances? The answer is no. How can you separate the height of this cup from the cup? Can you remove this this kind of accident, and to remove it where it can stand on its own? Now it is impossible. Likewise, the color of the cup. Can you remove the color of the cup? To a place where it can stand on its own. For example, this is orange in color. Can we remove this orange, just the color? We are not speaking about the substance, just the color itself. Can it be removed and stand on its own? Clearly the answer is no. Clearly the answer is is no. So we cannot displace it, and we cannot remove it any from substances. So it is not the same any as substances. Point number one. That's what he mentioned. Number one, it is not the same as substances because it is an additional thing. That's what we mentioned. But at the same time, also it cannot be separated any from. It cannot be separated any from substances. What is the reason it cannot be separated any from substances? Because it is not any self-subsistent. It subsists any within substances, but it by itself and it is not any self-subsistent. So there is no such thing as movement any by itself. There is no such thing as color by itself. There is no such thing as blackness any by itself. Yani black, the color black any by itself. There is no such thing. So when you say something any that is black any color, it always any it refers any to the substance any which the color any subsists in. Correct or not? Like for example, this mouse here, and it is black any in color. So this color which is black, it subsists any in the substance any of this material. So you cannot remove any the color any from the substance, and in the sense that it can subsist any on its own. So this is any the nature of us any understanding accidents and the difference any between accidents any and substances. So now when he mentioned the proof for the invalidity of these two views is the following. If an accident subsists within itself, so now let's say if you speak to an atheist and the atheist say why not that accidents they subsist by itself. If that is the case, the author is saying, if an accident subsists within itself or displaces itself and it can be removed, it would imply by necessity that the reality of an accident has been altered. That in reality it is not an accident. If if something and it can subsist by itself. For example, if a person and he says that the color of this glass, the color of this cup, that is orange, for example, we can remove it and it's just the color, and it can subsist by its own. If that happens, then it shows that is not an accident, but there is a substance. There is a substance. So it cannot be an accident. It cannot be an accident. It is impossible for an accident to subsist on their own. But if people were to say that something subsists by their own, automatically we say it is a substance. It is not an accident. But if a person says that it can be a substance, at the same time it can be an accident, it can subsist by itself, and it does not subsist by itself, now this is a contradiction. Or if a person says that an accident is an accident but it subsists by itself, this is qalbul haqa'iq. We are going against the realities. We are going against any realities. Just like a person says that something can move and does not move at the same time. Something that move that can, and not move at the same time. A person says for example, movement subsists by itself. Can movement subsist by itself? If a person says that this particular thing, movement subsists by itself, then it is not an accident, because it is impossible for movement to subsist by itself. So it must be a substance, and then we say that it can either move or be in stillness. But as long as we say that it is an accident, then accident and it cannot subsist by themselves. So it will imply by necessity that the reality of an accident has been altered, that it is not an accident in reality, because it is impossible. It leads to impossibilities. So it is something that is impossible for a person to say that accidents subsist by themselves. For example, let me give an example. Let us look at this example. Movement is when a substance displaces itself from one boundary to another. For example, now this cup now is on my right side. So I move to my left side. So initially it was from here and to here. So it moves from one boundary to another boundary. If movement was self-subsistent, or if it is displaced by itself, this reality will be altered, and movement will be a substance, and that is false. So now, if any we say that this movement and is an accident, if this movement and is an accident, yani meaning it moves any from one place, one boundary to another boundary. It moves any from one boundary to another boundary. If we were to say that this any movement is movement any by itself and without substance, can you imagine any movement and without substance? Let us take some time to imagine. Can you imagine something that moves but it is not under substance? Impossible. The moment something takes place is substance. Something takes place, it comes from the right. When it is binary by direction, it is a substance. But for us to say that the movement of this cup, the movement of the cup which is an accident, and at the same time it, what you call it, can move from one boundary to another boundary, and at the same time it is an accident. Now this is impossible. This is impossible because movement itself is subsisted in substances. So the moment something takes from one boundary to another boundary, it must be a substance. It cannot be an accident. The movement itself it always subsists within substances, and this is actually it is easy based on observation. Anything that moves must be a substance. How can any movement moves by itself? Movement. Now this is impossible. That's what you mentioned. So this reality will be altered, any meaning there will be a clash in realities. Yani you are saying it's something that is substance and accident at the same time. Now this is impossible. How can movement, which is an accident, is self and subsistent? This is impossible, and this is like saying movement and stillness is the same, that it can happen at the same time. This is impossible. So it leads into impossibilities. This reality will be altered and movement would be a substance, and that is false. And that is false. Yeah, a person he says that what you call it, the movement is an accident, but at the same time also it is self and subsistent, and it can displace by itself, and this is false. Because if anybody were to say this, and if we give any examples, it will be a substance. So if it is a substance, and it's not an accident. But to say that it is an accident, and at the same time, we say that it is self-subsistent, now this is false. This is false. So this is any point number 2 and number 3. And then he mentioned any point. This is any point number 4. Invalidating the view of its manifestation and concealment. We invalidate this by saying that this by necessity leads to the gathering of two categories in one locus. Yani a person says, for example, this cup, for example, is moving and not moving at the same time. It is not moving, but it is moving inside this cup, and it is moving, but outside it is not any moving. This is the meaning of concealment. A person says that this cup is in stillness, but at the same time also some parts inside is moving. So it is impossible to say something that moves and does not move at the same time. So either something that is moving, so now we are saying that it is moving, or something in a state of stillness, so means it is not moving. But to say that something is not moving, and at the same time the interior part is moving, for example, even in concealment, now this is impossible, because either something moves or does not move. Clear, inshallah? So that is why he mentioned leads to the gathering of two categories in one locus. The meaning of locus is an entity. An entity anywhere, it is self and is subsistent. Then the next part that he mentioned, establishing that it is impossible for something eternal to cease in its existence. It is impossible for something that is eternal, that does not have a beginning and no ending, to cease in its existence. Because if it ceases in its existence, it is jais. It is a contingent. So it cannot be eternal and contingent at the same time, because this again what you call it, categories, two categories. We establish this impossibility by saying the following. If something eternal ceased to exist, its existence will be only contingently possible. Yani, if something is eternal, or something is pre-eternal and eternal, yani no beginning and no end, if you say that it ceased in its existence, yani meaning it has any the contingency and factor yani in it. So it cannot be eternal. It is contingent. Because pre-eternality does not accept non-existence. This is a principle. Something that is eternal cannot accept non-existence, because the existence of the eternal wajibul wujud ma la yaqbalu al-adam, that it does not accept any non-existence. And when you say something whose existence is necessary, who is eternal, it is impossible for it to accept non-existence. So he gave this example. If something eternal ceases to exist, its existence will be only contingently possible. Now this is from the jaizat. Something initially it exists, then it comes into non-existence. This is the possibilities and not any necessary. Because something that is necessary cannot accept non-existence. But now this can accept non-existence, then this must be jaiz. This must be contingent. The existence is jaiz and not wajib, because it accepts any non-existence. The definition of jaiz is something that accepts any non-existence or existence. Both it can accept non-existence and it accept existence. This is the meaning of mumkinul wujud. So if something accepts existence and non-existence, then it's mumkin. It is not wajib. Clear, inshallah? And the contingently possible can only be originated, which would mean that the eternal is originated, and this is a contradiction. And when we say something that is contingent, meaning it is preceded by non-existence. Correct or not? It is preceded by non-existence. So when we say that something that is not preceded by non-existence, like the eternal and the pre-eternal, is not what you call originated and does not have any non-existence within. But at the same time, when we say there is any non-existence in its origin, now this is a contradiction. And we are saying something that has a beginning, but at the same time it does not have a beginning. Contradiction. Something that what you call it accept any non-existence, but at the same time it is eternal. This is impossible, because this is a contradiction. The contingently possible can only be originated. So can only be originated and preceded by non-existence, which would mean that the eternal is originated, because it also accepts any non-existence. Then this is a contradiction, because something that is eternal must be eternal in the sense that it cannot accept non-existence. It cannot accept any non-existence, because it becomes any mumkinul wujud, as what we mentioned. So something that is mumkinul wujud cannot be wajibul wujud at the same time. This is a contradiction. The next one, and he said, affirming that substances are inseparable from this addition, the accident. So this one, as what we mentioned, that substances cannot be separated from accident. Substances cannot be separated from accident. Like, for example, we say the height of this cup. Can you separate the height of this cup from the cup? You cannot separate. The color of this cup from the cup, can you separate? You cannot separate. But if a person say, but you can cut it out. No, it's not what we meant, because when you cut it out, it's part of the substance. We are speaking about accident. We are just speaking about the color, and we are not speaking about the substance. Can you separate the color from the substance of this cup? This is the thing. You cannot do so. Can you separate the movement of the cup from the cup? So movement is an accident. You cannot separate. You cannot separate the two. But at the same time, also we say that they are not the same. It is an addition. An accident is an addition. So substance is substance. Addition is an addition. And at the same time, they are inseparable. And you cannot separate the accident from the substance. So now let us look at what the author is saying. Affirming that substances are inseparable from this addition, the accident. This is self-evident, because it cannot be conceived that a substance can be without the state of either stillness or movement. A substance can either be still or moving. So if it is still, meaning it is not moving. If it is moving, meaning it is not in it is not any in stillness. So this any moving any and not moving cannot any be separated any from the substance, because any it, what you call it, it is not any self any subsistent, and it is an accident which subsists in that substance. So the moment any I move any this glass, there is movement. So we say that the movement any is not part any of the is not separated any from the substance, and at the same time any we say it is different any from the substance, but it cannot any be separated any from the substance. So it cannot be imagined that you can separate any the movement from the substance, because movements any subsist within substances. The last one, and he said, number 7, establishing the impossibility of contingencies without a first. Hawadis la awwala laha. Yani, if we say that something is contingent, meaning it has a beginning. But to say that something is a contingent but yet has no beginning, now this is an impossible. This is an impossible. Whenever we say something is contingent, meaning it has a beginning. It is not any pre-eternal. It is contingent, hadith. But we cannot only be saying something that is hadith and pre-eternal at the same time. This is mustahil. So this is the proof. Say the most straightforward proof against this is to say, if every individual contingent was originated, it follows that they were all non-existent in pre-eternity. So for example, you have contingencies. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Many contingencies. If we say that all these are contingent any beings, meaning it must have a beginning. So in Al-Adam, in pre-eternality, all of this does not exist. Correct? Not because they have a beginning. So the last one to be in existence, it is preceded by non-existence. So all of it are non-existence in pre-eternality, because they are contingent beings. So this one is saying, it follows that they were all non-existence where in pre-eternity, Al-Adam, in pre-eternity, because they have a beginning and they are contingent. Furthermore, there are but 2 scenarios. So he said there are 2 scenarios. Either an individual contingent among the series of contingents has forever accompanied this non-any existence, or it has not. So these are the 2, what you call it, the 2 any possibilities. Either we say that these contingencies, what you call it, if a person claims, for example, any contingencies is the same as pre-eternity. It is contingent, but at the same time it can be pre-eternal. This one a claim. Another claim is what we mentioned, that all of them are not present, are not in existence in pre-eternity. So number 1, he said that if it is accompanied this non-existence, either an individual contingent among the series of contingents has forever accompanied this non-existence, accompanied al-Adam, this pre-eternity, or it has not. If it has, meaning it accompanies pre-eternity, there is implied a gathering between a thing's existence and non-existence. The impossibility of this is rationally self-evident. Just like saying that these contingent beings, these contingencies, it accompanied pre-eternity. It accompanied pre-eternity. By saying that this is contingent, but at the same time it is pre-eternal. So this is a contradiction. What is a contradiction? That's what we mentioned. How can we say something is contingent and pre-eternal at the same time? Is there a contradiction or not contradiction? There is a contradiction. But if a person says that this contingent being, it accompanies with pre-eternity, meaning it is pre-eternal. Although it has a beginning, but it is pre-eternal. Can we accept? Is it logical that something that has a beginning, but at the same time it is pre-eternal? This is what the author meant. This is impossible. By, what did he say? He said, by rational thinking, that a person easily can deduce of this impossibility. The impossibility of this is rationally self-evident, because this is a contradiction between having a contingent being and pre-eternity. If it is has, if it on the other hand, if no individual contingent accompany non-existence, and meaning all this in pre-eternity they are not in existence because they are contingent, then they are brought into existence. It implies that all of them had a first, and all of them had a beginning, and that none of them are beginningless. That all of them do not have any what you call it, are not any in existence any in pre-eternity, and this is any the right one. And the moment we say something is contingent, meaning it does not exist in pre-eternity, so it is preceded any by non-existence. If it's something and it is contingent, it is preceded any by non any existence. So now we have come to the next part. So all this we have spoken about the proofs for al-wujud, the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the author speaks about what you call it, the universe, and that the universe is contingent, and anything that is contingent and is preceded by non-existence, and it is in it by an originator, and that originator is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is the one who brought everything from non-existence to existence, and it is impossible for something that is contingent to exist by itself. It is in need of an external factor, correct? Not we spoke about this. It is in need of an external factor to bring it into existence. So when we look at this universe, after understanding that it is contingent because it is made up of substances and accidents are surely contingencies. So if it is contingent, substances are also contingent, because you cannot separate accidents from substance. There is no such thing as an accident that subsists by itself. It is mustahil. So it always subsists within substances. This is the nature, the reality of accidents. So if accidents are contingent, then substances are contingent. And since this universe is made up of substances and accidents, then both of them are contingencies. And if they are contingencies, then they have a beginning. If they have a beginning, then we are in need of the originator, the one who brought them from non-existence into existence. And this is the proof of the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who has no beginning. So then after that he spoke about the rational proof for pre-eternality. So now we find that the author follow the sequence of the 20 attributes. So he start off by al-wujud, this is sifat nafsiyah, and then now we enter into sifat salbiyah again. But here he speaks about the proofs, the barahin. What is the proof of the pre-eternality of Allah, the eternality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah mukhalafatul lil hawadis, qiyamuhu bi nafsihi wahdaniyah. So all this in sifat salbiyah again, we will cover. But this time of course we speak about the proofs behind these attributes. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq and hidayah. I will postpone this part to the next week, and since we just entered, and because of time, I hope that you take some time to reflect again and revise what we have covered today. The 7 foundations, so that we understand about the nature of accidents. All this we spoke last time. If you remember, we spoke about infinite regression. One of the proofs that we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala must be qadim, and God he must be pre-eternal, and if God is contingent, then he cannot become God, and because we are in need of that originator, as what we mentioned. So these are some of the proofs that we will cover inshallah next week. We will inshallah give some examples, and everything will be clear inshallah. And subhanallah, if you study all these proofs for the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll be amazed. And this surely will increase our iman, increase our faith, and strengthen our foundations in religion. Because not only we understand the Aqeedah, but at the same time also we understand the proofs, so that when people speak to us and speaking about the impossibilities, automatically we can understand, and we can counter, and we can tell them, and this is an impossible, or this is necessary, or this is wajib, or this is jaiz, and this is an accident, and this is a substance, and so on and so forth. So all these things are very, very important arguments, and that we have to that we have any to understand and to protect any ourselves. And also inshallah ta'ala, it is important any today that we propagate and we also take any the opportunity any to do da'wah, because many of our youths and they are in need any of this knowledge and they might not know this. And there are a lot of Muslims and I believe they might not know about so many of these proofs and that Islam is speaking about, because the problem any that we are facing any today is ignorance, that we find not many people are inclined to seek knowledge. And this is the thing, although now it is better I think in comparison any to 10 years ago for example, but it is still not enough. And the wave any of ideologies any that is flooding into the minds any of our youths are incredible, something any that is enormous and is something that is huge. But the counter yani is minimum. The counter yani is minimum. So there are many any cases any that our youths any are influenced any by some any of this any philosophies any that are against the Islamic any faith and so on, and they do not have the enough strength any to counter, or enough any knowledge to counter any these thoughts any that is haunting them. So the key any to this any is to seek knowledge, to attain any these knowledges. So knowledge any is a light. That's why any Al-Imam Sheikh Ibn Raslan any Zubat any he said fa'mal walau bil ushri, yani knowledge any, if you practice any this knowledge and even any 1/10 takhruj biha takhruj bin nuri min adh-dhulumati, that you will attain light any from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the form of guidance, that you are able any to see in the path any of darkness. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us any with tawfiq and hidayah. So inshallah yani we will postpone it to next week. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. There is one question. Salam Ustaz, wa alaikum salam. Are substances ajram self-subsistent? Of course, it is what we mentioned. Substances ajram, it is self-subsistent. This is what we have been repeating many times. Accidents are not self-subsistent. Not any self-subsistent. Let me repeat it. What is the meaning of self-subsistence? Again, look at this. Look at this cup. This is self-subsistent. Yani, it is something that take up space and binded by direction. You cannot put something else in its place. Correct or not? Yani, when you have this cup, can you put another cup in its place? You cannot do so, because this is what we meant. That it stand on its own. It stand on its own in the sense that you cannot put something else to subsist in it. But accidents is different. Accidents is within this cup, correct or not? The color of this cup is within this cup. It subsists inside. Meaning you cannot remove it. Can you remove the color? As what we mentioned, you cannot remove the color because it is inside. But now, if I have two substances now, I have this and I have this. Can I subsist this cup inside, meaning I place this bottle inside, taking the same space. Now it's not possible, because why? Because these are two substances. These are two substances. This take up space and is self-subsistent. This is self-subsistent. So it is different from accident. For accident, like the what you call it movement, the stillness,